Good morning, Wrestling Inc. Get up, get going. Happy Thursday. I hope you are thirsty for some pro wrestling punditry. It is me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, for the last time for another week or so. I'm going to be talking the news, and who better to go out in style with here than our very good friend, I'd say Twitter famous, Paul Pratt. Paul, welcome to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Am I Twitter famous? I used to think that 10,000 followers was Twitter famous, and then I think it's like that number has gone way up. So I'm working on it.
But you're riding the wave of Twitter fame. I mean, my Saturdays are largely filled on my Twitter feed of gifs of you falling down and getting hurt.
Yeah, and you're welcome. But but it's, that's the new thing. At some point, I have to thank God for that Joey Janela spot. I had to get my comeuppance at some point with someone.
Yeah, that's true. He really hit the power bomb on you, right?
No, I hit the power bomb on him.
Oh, you hit the power bomb on Joey. That's what it was, right?
I kissed him and then power bombed him.
Sorry, so many gifs of you in my sphere right now on Twitter between the chairs and the what is it? Somebody had a big phallic object.
That was recent. Yeah, the giant dildo.
Okay, we could just say dildo. Dildo's okay. I think we could say dildo.
Underground Wrestling Alliance and their funny boner. Oh, curse you, funny boner.
Well, I'm in a good mood here, everybody. We're going early here today because in a couple hours I'm going to be taking off on vacation. I'll be gone tomorrow through next Friday. All next week, Michael Weissman's going to be the host. He's going to be doing the show. By the way, DX Vex here over on Twitch saying I didn't know that Polio was a morning person. I guess
I'm not a morning person, but we're doing this. We are doing this because we are accommodating Nick and Liz's cruise schedule.
Yes, I got to go to Spain on a cruise, everybody. So that's why we're going early.
I've got to go to Spain on a cruise, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Is that who
I am? Horrible.
I've become Mr. Thurston Howell, right? Is that who I am?
Oh, Lovey and I are going to Spain on a cruise. It's a 3-hour cruise.
I feel like I'm getting a private snatch game right now. Brian Bill's giving us that PDM over on Twitch. Yeah. So that's what's going on next week. But on this show here today, we're going to talk all the news. After the news break, you're going to hear the full audio from Raj Giri, the Wrestling Inc. president. His conversation with the Bollywood boys. They're going to be on the big free live stream Defy event on Pluto TV's Pro Wrestling channel this weekend. I think this is a really cool thing. It's Pluto TV's first live stream, and it's with Defy, great company. And the main event is Filthy Tom Lawler versus Jon Moxley. And if you're going to float out your first free event to see how it goes, not a bad main event to float it out there with.
Not at all. And I'm going to be very interested to see more about what Pluto TV is able to do with this kind of pro wrestling channel. It's going to be, it could be potentially a game changer for the way people present pro wrestling and the places that people go to watch pro wrestling.
I agree. And good on you always want to be the first with a platform like this because then you're the one that got them over the hump and they're emotionally connected to you. You want to be the Bruce Pritchard in the Conrad universe. You know what I'm saying? Gets the most love. Biggest piece of pie. No?
Sure.
Anyway, Bollywood Boys will be here later with Raj. We're also going to premiere that over on the Wrestling Inc. YouTube channel, noon 30. So that's about 25 minutes from now. And if you're watching us in video form, jump over there. For audio form, you're going to hear it later. And the mailbag will be at the end of the show for everybody. We're going to look at the newly announced AEW Double or Nothing main event. But let's get to the rest of the AEW news here with some news you can use, news that'll leave a bruise. There was a couple bits of big news coming out of Dynamite last night. We'll start with the main event. Yeah, Scorpio Sky defeating Sammy Guevara to become the new AEW TNT champion. A lot of hot potato jokes being made, I saw last night on the socials. Post-match, Kazarian and Sky, they kind of shared a moment together. Looked like Paige and Dan Lambert were upset about that, so maybe dissension here amongst the men of the year. What'd you think of all this? Me personally, this felt good. Felt like a moment to me.
I thought that, well, to be honest, it just left me scratching my head. Why would you take that belt off of Scorpio to begin with, only to put it back on him? A lot of people on social media seem to indicate that the thought behind this was the double turn of Sammy to heel and Scorpio to babyface. And I felt that that was happening regardless. They could have allowed that championship to stay exactly where it was, and that turn could have happened regardless. But I think that the bigger picture there is that they wanted Sammy Guevara to tie that Cody Rhodes record so that Cody couldn't go around saying that he was the only 3-time champion in TNT title history, whatever. And that's a very common trope that happens, especially in WWE. When somebody who's no longer with your company has a record, you break it with somebody new. But to me, it does feel like this devalues that title a little bit, the back and forth and all of the people who've held it since January alone.
Yes, I see that argument. I'm not too upset about this one. I've seen a lot of great points made on social media about how this was used, got more heat on Sammy, right? He didn't really win it in an honorable way. There was like a ton of shenanigans in the title match where he actually won the thing. So for Scorpio to come back and, take the title, I think everybody wanted that. They got it, right? It was very satisfying. I definitely think the notes about people saying how this set up Paige Van Zant and Ty Conti great that's another nice side effect of what we got here with everything kind of being going around. Sammy, Brian's saying here, Sammy's spot was tough to watch. That 600 or whatever he did off the top rope onto the back of his head, was nuts. But Sammy got to do more of what Sammy likes to do, and people like to watch Sammy do, which is do crazy things, So I don't know. There was a lot of, is it your typical kind of story? I mean, it's a little different, a little 90s-esque, I guess, but every now and then I'm fine with it. I thought it worked here. I thought it was fine.
I mean, in terms of the match quality, I thought it was good. I thought there was a lot, again, far too much going on in this match, in my opinion, just with the Ty and the Paige Van Sant business and all of that. But in terms of putting the belt back on Scorpio Sky is more successful, more popular right now than he has ever been, which is a good thing for him. Sammy and Ty, obviously, or Tay, very obviously are going to have a bright future as heels in the company. I think that this is an interesting backlash to something that started in their personal lives months and months ago, which was a very public and very head-scratching kind of, breaking up of his engagement and then taking their personal lives beyond public.
Yeah, that's its old kind. Booker T, I think, did a good segment on that the other day on his show about, what kind of heat is Sammy getting here now? Is it the good kind of heat, or is it the I just genuinely maybe don't like you and I would prefer not to see you on my TV screen right now type heat? I don't think we're quite there yet.
I don't think we're there yet, but yeah. I definitely think that when people look at what's happening in the bigger picture, in the context of remembering that this guy just, proposed to this longtime girlfriend, whatever, on television, and to know that he kind of within months has made this about face and kind of publicly humiliated somebody, I think that it speaks poor of his character, his personal character, and I think that leaves people questioning their choices.
Here's my biggest kind of, not a complaint, maybe a note, observation about this match is the barbed wire ladder. Is AEW a deathmatch company now? Like, it just doesn't seem like a week or a show can go by where they don't incorporate some kind of death match element, thumbtacks, glass, Legos, barbed wire. A show can't go by with something like that not happening. And I mean, a ladder match is already really brutal. I don't know why you need to do a barbed wire ladder, especially on free TV, but that was just something for me. And I'm not like a big death match hater or anything, but as the conversation continues to go, I see the GCF&W. As the conversation continues to go about have they flatlined, are they growing, are they finding new fans? I think that for anybody that kind of finds a lane where they love the FTR stuff, or whatever Punk is doing, but then all of a sudden they're like watching people mutilate each other and use these really brutal product. I think it does kind of create a self-imposed cap on your viewership when you do things like that so consistently. Interestingly
enough, though, they used that barbed wire ladder match and there wasn't a drop of blood to be found anywhere. So
I agree, but it's just like, why did you even need to do it then?
I think that is because of I think that's a Tony Khanism. I think that is a constantly trying to use a stunt of some kind. So yeah. I think that's part of what he does. Like, oh no, we just did we just did this ladder match, so now it has to be a barbed wire ladder match.
Take it to the neck. I don't know, but that's the thing is the clip in which they are doing these kinds of things, and like what you're having to do to be more violent or scarier than the last time. I mean, we're moving that direction. You know, I saw that. I go, are they a death match company? Would we consider
They are
AEW?
not. They are not.
No?
And I think that the problem with what we're seeing is exactly what you're talking about, is that they become like thumbtacks coming out in a match now is so cliche that it has no effect on anyone. And I think that that's the thing. Like when you do things at such a rapid rate that people become accustomed to seeing it, they're almost disappointed if it doesn't go there, versus being
Right.
like shocked and dismayed or in awe that you don't get that. You don't get a response at all. It's expected. And when your audience becomes builds that expectation, then what do you do to go beyond that?
Yeah, well, DX Vex here over on Twitch saying I'm just in the wings for them to take a match on a rocket ship, right? Let's go to space. Let's raise the ante here, you know? Thumbtacks floating around. Ooh, taking them, floating them through. Well, last night on Dynamite, MJF did a pretty heavy tease for W. Morrissey coming in as Wardlow's next opponent on Dynamite. I'm loving the Wardlow run. Who's not having fun with Wardlow right now? And be good for Morrissey. I mean, the guy really seems to have been trying to actively clear his head and, you know, reset himself. I hope he takes this opportunity and makes the most of it, because he certainly worked very hard for it.
You know, his work and impact has been impressive. The fact that he is very public about where he has been and the road that he's walked since the kind of like public downfall that he had a number of years ago. I think it was 3 years ago at this point. I appreciate and admire that. I'm wondering if that means that I hope he does not come in full time. I don't think there's a place for him in this company full time. There's just too much going on, and he unfortunately doesn't have the name recognition that would push him beyond that lower mid card. But I think that this would be a great one-off match for them.
Man, Brian Bills nailed exactly how I'm feeling right now. You can't face MJF without going through all these levels. It does feel like the labors of Jericho all over again, doesn't it?
Yes, it's a tried and true trope for MJF. You have to get to him. You have to. It's happened over and over again.
Yeah. I noticed it, you know, for sure. And I guess I'm not the only one here. Yeah, this definitely feels like this. And I guess this is the Nick Gage spot or the Hoovy spot, right? You're just bringing in somebody to have a match that'll get some buzz, and then off they go. And I hope you make 500 more bucks on the indies, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Lastly, here coming out of Dynamite, obviously the much anticipated FTR versus FTR match took place in the Owen Hart Cup tournament. Dax Harwood came out on top, defeating Cash Wheeler. Thought it was a real nice way to open the show. I don't know that I'd call it the best wrestling match of all time, but it certainly felt like a Bret Hart Owen Hart match, and I appreciated it for what it was.
I thought it was a stellar match. I thought it was very well done. I thought that in many ways their personal passion for this, in my estimation, upped the ante of what it means to be in this Bret Hart tournament. Both of them were giving their all because of the value that they place on this particular tournament. I wasn't impressed by CM Punk. Kind of,
I saw you, man, on Twitter.
like,
You were not feeling it.
I wasn't, I guess that in part it is towing the kayfabe line because they're somehow affiliated marginally now at this point with MJF or whatever. But the way this is a personal opinion, but he added so little on commentary to that match. There are numerous times, if you go back and watch, that Tony Schiavone will ask him a question and he literally sounds like he's not paying attention at all. He'll be like, wouldn't you say, like, whatever, these men are both excellent athletes, wouldn't you say? And there's like a noticeable audible pause and then he'll be like, yeah, I guess you could say that, or whatever. It just was very strange to me.
Yeah, I think I heard it more as like a character type thing. I do think that subliminally it did send a signal to people that, like, it might, especially since it's, again, not a death match where people are expecting to see people stab someone at this point for a compelling bit of television. I do think in that regard, he could have probably put over the action a little bit more. I agree with that. But man, after the match, he put him over in the ring. He grabbed the mic. He came out there as he was setting up the Hangman Page stuff and, said FTR, great team, we're the best of all time or something like that. So, I don't know. I see why
he
you're
said
upset.
like give it up for Dax and Cash
Yeah.
while he was walking to the ring. I think that was I wouldn't. I almost wonder if somebody in the back wasn't like knock this shit off, like make this match sound important. You just crapped on it for like 10 minutes.
I think maybe down the line there's some business these two are gonna or three might be doing together. I don't know. And yeah, but I mean, I guess if he's not going to sit there and make this thing feel bigger, then why put him in that spot?
Well, exactly correct.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to have somebody there that's not selling what's happening, fully selling it, then why have them there?
All right. Well, we'll talk more about Punk here in the mailbag. We're going to talk about the Double or Nothing main event. But real quickly, yeah, the Observer, they're saying several WWE superstars have been missing shows recently due to COVID-19. While no names were specifically mentioned regarding who tested positive, at least a couple of wrestlers have been affected. The company hasn't made any announcements about the superstars contracting COVID, and no wrestlers have come out publicly. WWE isn't actively testing its superstars anymore for COVID-19 with the virus slowing down, but talent is obviously still checking themselves when they begin to have symptoms, and this is the way of it. I saw Fauci earlier this week saying we are no longer in the pandemic phase. I don't want to say it's like the flu because I'm not a doctor or anything, but this is just until we see another huge surge in COVID, it seems like it's, knock on wood, kind of back to business as usual largely right now. Doesn't it feel that way?
I think that a lot of people are treating it that way for sure. So, and I think that is for numerous reasons. Part of it was just simply COVID exhaustion, the idea and the concept. And this is speaking exclusively for myself, somebody who took all the precautions, who's been vaccinated a bazillion times, it feels
Right.
like, gotten all the vaccinations. At this juncture, it's just like there's nothing left for me to do, so I'm just going to try to live as happily and productively as possible.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And lastly, here's some good news before we get to the mailbag. And Bollywood Boys here, if you're listening to an audio forum. But Hasbro Pulse, great source. I love new sources on the run sheet. They confirmed that WWE Hall of Famer Sergeant Slaughter has signed a new multi-year deal with toy giant Hasbro and will soon be returning to the world of G.I. Joe for action figures. The company is keeping oh wait, that's from an earlier story. Sorry. That's it. He's just back in the G.I. Joe universe.
That was my fault. I could have corrected that run sheet note, but I was like, yeah, well,
whatever. No, but this is good news for fans of Sergeant Slaughter and G.I. Joe. I'm so happy for Sarge to have this happening.
Absolutely. I remember as a kid, I had Sergeant Slaughter G.I. Joe, and I used to, unlike most kids probably, or maybe many of the kids who grew up to watch this show, I always used my G.I. Joe action figures as a wrestling company. So Sergeant Slaughter was like an actual wrestler among my wrestling company of like, Snake Eyes.
Fester Fink here with an homage. Sergeant Slaughter is back. Maggots. Very happy for him. He's iconic in the G.I. Joe universe.
Hey, and he's also a really nice person. Or whoever's running his Twitter is a really nice person. At least he follows pretty much everyone.
My favorite and this is I'm not saying this story to paint a bad picture of Sarge, because it's really not a bad picture. But there was this Comic-Con I went to one time, and everybody's got their booths, right? And it's usually like a table up front, and it's got like a sign or whatever. Yeah. There was just the square, okay, with a red rope all around the square, bare, just the carpet square, right? Sergeant Slaughter sign, a stool in the middle of the square, and Sergeant Slaughter just sitting on the stool with his sunglasses, everything like this, but just like asleep, just like dead asleep. And you would go over to his handler if you wanted a photo, and the handler would walk over and like wake up Sarge, and he would become Sergeant Slaughter and like give you that 2-3 minutes of photo autograph time, and then he would just sit back down like a museum wax figure, completely still. It was the wildest sight I've ever seen at a Comic-Con. I will never ever forget it, Paul.
Well, I think that's brilliant.
That's great.
I mean, who doesn't want to just be able to wake up, earn money, and fall back asleep immediately on command?
So good.
That's like a dream come true.
So good.
Like, you just like sound asleep. They wake you up. Maggots. Let's take this picture.
Dude, It was totally that. It was amazing because I asked for an interview and they're like, "No, he only gets up for photos and autographs."
So, I mean, yeah, I think that's fantastic. I think it's brilliant. I also think that one of the reasons why that this is such a big deal, to have him re-embraced back into the GI Joe world, is because I do know that the highlight of his career, the highest point of his career, which was playing an Iraqi sympathizer, right? Like that ruined that relationship for a number of years. Because of the fact that he can't be GI Joe's friend because GI Joe is like the American hero. So the fact that they've re-embraced him after this period of time, I think that's phenomenal for him.
Well, and it's become more known in recent years. Didn't he just like straight up lie about military experience in like various interviews where he just like,
Who knows? Like I wouldn't doubt that at all. Like I don't think that one's wrestling character necessarily needs to hinge on reality. He was portraying this. I mean, I wouldn't say go around lying about military experience or whatever, but I just want to point out there's been countless people who are not really ninjas. I don't want to break people's hearts, but they are not actual ninjas. And believe it or not, Undertaker wasn't actually dead.
Huh. All right. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for joining me at the top show to talk all the news of the day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in here at this early hour to join in the chat and listen to us talk about pro wrestling stuff. Tomorrow, we're going to run an archive interview. I'm not really sure what's going to be on the RSS feed, but of course, Bollywood Boys up now on the wrestling, or about to be up on the Wrestling YouTube channel. Premiere here in about 5 minutes. And if you're listening to us on the RSS feed, you already heard it. So thanks for sticking around. All right, let's dive into the mailbag one more time before I go away. 120 votes here for today's poll question. Who walks out of AEW Double or Nothing as the AEW World Champion? 73.2% say CM Punk. 26.8% give Hangman Page the edge. What about you, Paul? Who do you think walks out as champion?
The more I think about it, the absolute more certain I am that CM Punk walks out as champion. I think that Adam Page has been given his opportunity to run at the top. I think it's been an unfortunately lackluster experience for most of the viewers. And I think that it's time that they put somebody in that position who's going to be able to reclaim some of the prestige that I think that has been lost from that AEW title over the last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, you think about all the big money CM Punk matches that you've kind of got sitting around. Obviously, the Danielson match would be really big. We haven't really seen Moxley yet, so it kind of sets up the whole Blackpool Combat Club, or maybe he gets maybe he gets a little straight edge society thing going on, with his buddies. I could see him and Darby working together maybe more. So yeah, I just think there's a lot more big money matches with CM Punk at the top of the card. I'm pretty convinced it'll be Punk as well.
Yeah. I unfortunately for Adam Page, I think that he is the type of character that's far better in the chase for the belt, a Dusty-esque type of character, or a babyface Barry Windham type of character running after the belt. I don't think the money is on having him as champion. We've already seen that. And unfortunately, they have accomplished everything for him that they wanted to accomplish, with the exception of getting him fully over as a world champion. And it's going to be time to move on.
Yeah, and Brian Bill's here saying MJF taking the title off of Punk would be the ultimate rubber match payoff. And I don't think you get right to the MJF Punk match.
Not at all.
But you can have a bunch of big money matches in a year from now or 9 months from now or whenever All Out comes along. If you want to go back to MJF Punk after Punk's been dominant and MJF is going to pick up the pieces after him, I think Wardlow is going to kick the shit out of him at Revolution. And then he'll have to go find somebody else to rough up and get back to where he was,
This is a situation where exactly what you were saying, they're going to look at where the money is. And Adam Page is not the money in terms of being top of the card, in terms of the people. There's nobody people are clamoring to see him face off against, really. And whereas CM Punk, there is exactly that. All of the people that you've mentioned and then some. I think that when it comes down to it, people are much more excited to see opponents face CM Punk in general than they are Adam Page, world title aside.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Wardlow wasn't the one to take the title next. I know that they have big plans for Wardlow. They see this guy as a centerpiece. And so a dominant run from Punk where he takes on the top competition, the company, Does this go back to MJF, or does it go to the person who, like I said, might kick the shit out of MJF here at Double or Nothing in Vegas and set off on his own kind of dominant course for a possible collision with Punk down the road?
I think that there's certainly the sky's the limit for Wardlow, and we saw that last night when he put on an impressive outing, and had people's minds blown.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we're going to wrap it up there today, everybody. That's the final show again before I'm leaving. Tomorrow, we'll have something up in the archives. I don't really know what I want to put up there, but Raj gave me the go-ahead to just kind of pick whatever. So we'll flash back to something. Next week, Michael Weissman, he's running the ship. So support him. Be nice to him. I've seen some people saying they're going to haze Michael. Don't do that. Joyous space. Be nice to Michael. Be nice to everybody, right? Come back next week. Support the Wrestling Inc. Daily. We're on all the podcast platforms, sportwrestlinginc.com. We're on all the socials. Come back tomorrow night after SmackDown for the Wrestling Inc. podcast. What do you want to put over here, Paul, before we wrap it up?
You know what? I'm working on getting Twitter famous, as Nick said at the beginning. So please follow me at the Glamazon PDM on Twitter. I just posted a picture of my mom when we put her in drag. She shared it. She recently made it her profile picture on Facebook. So go check out my mom in drag. It's a while ago. She's not as hot now, but she's just as amazing.
Wow. All right. Look at that tease. Yeah, go make Paul Twitter famous, and please just ignore me on socials. I really, I'm not somebody that engages much. I have to have one for the work, and I appreciate everyone who does follow me. I try to reward you with photos of Willow as often as I can. That's my dog.
Dog pictures are a way to get followers, undoubtedly.
All right, everybody. I'll talk to you in a week or so. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.